We have the Sony ZV-E1 and we're going to compare and contrast what it's like to shoot with an APS-C lens when shooting in HD and also in 4K. If you're not familiar with the A7S III and FX3, which this camera is often compared to, you have to know that we can't shoot APS-C lenses on that camera in 4K. We can only use them in HD. Fortunately, thanks to the AI in this camera, we're able to use clear image zoom and still retain much of the autofocus features, unlike the A7S III and FX3. So I want to show you what it's like to use an APS-C lens on this camera in HD and also in 4K, and to see if the field of view is actually quite comparable, if it's similar, if it's the same, and if it's something that you are interested in doing in the future, so you can save some money on some full frame glass. By the way, we are shooting in active stabilization mode throughout all these tests. So with my setup here, I have the Tokina 11 to 18mm f2.8 on the Sony ZV-E1, and we're shooting in HD. And right now we're at 11mm, and I have the camera about a foot away from my face. So right now you can see a decent amount of the environment around me and have the context as where our story is taking place. Alright, right now we're shooting at 18mm, and in full frame equivalent is almost comparable to a 24mm, and you can see that the environment is quite squished and my head barely fits into the frame. Right now I'm shooting at 4K at 11mm, and I'm gonna go ahead and crop in, or at least punch in a little bit, so I can get rid of the vignetting in the corners. Boom, just like that. How does it compare and contrast? I'm gonna go ahead and put the 11mm in HD over in one of these sides and see if we're losing much of the frame. Right now the camera's AI is focusing well on my eye, or at least it's showing the box on the screen, but let me know see if it's actually keeping up with it. Also using a zoom lens, I'm gonna also go ahead and defer to actually just zooming in instead of using clear image zoom, and see how the results look that way. So right now I am currently zoomed in all the way at 18mm, but I can still kind of see in the screen that there's still quite a little bit of vignetting. So I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in a little bit there, and we're about halfway through, so I would say maybe like one time zoom in, and it looks still pretty good. It's not as tight as the 18mm, but yeah, it's alright. But for convenience, it's just easier for me to go ahead and press the step up zoom on the back of the camera. Although this is a full frame camera, using APS-C lenses is much easier to go ahead and shoot, especially when you're trying to save money. But let me know in the comments if shooting full frame is an absolute must and shooting 4K an absolute must for you, especially when shooting with a camera as pricey as this. Did we spend $2,200 just so we can shoot with APS-C lenses in an HD, or do we really want to shoot 4K all the time? And if you are considering to shoot full frame, a comparable lens that you could use for this camera is the Tamron 20 to 40mm. I'm considering buying it for myself as a nice travel lens for this setup. By the way, if you didn't know, this camera also has dynamic stabilization, which is actually comparable to a gimbal, but you have to go over here and watch and see what it's like.